Hello and welcome to another Purveyor of Light Capture One quick tip. Today we're going to cover the tool that I consider to be one of the most valuable tools when it comes to post-processing images. And what I'm going to cover today applies to no matter what tool you use, whether it's Capture One, Lightroom, Photoshop, or any other one. They all have a curve tool, or a tone curve as they call them. Okay, I consider it the most powerful tool in post-processing, and I believe if you master it, you'll take your photo editing to the next level. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, I've got this image here open in Capture One, and let's go ahead and grab the curves tool, and I'm going to drag it out here for you, and I'm going to make it much larger so it's easier to see. And let's close the browser so we get a little more real estate. Okay, so the tone curve intimidates a lot of people, okay? Understandably, all right? But it's actually a very simple tool to get your head around. You're looking at it gives you an actual histogram right here. And that histogram is just a squished version of the histogram that you have in your tool palette. It's exactly the same, okay? If I make changes in this, it affects here, okay? So if I turn around and I take a thing and you notice that the curve in the histogram changes with this. See, as I move things, it moves because it's displaying the information of the image, okay? So Capture One does a really nice job of plotting the red, green, and blue channels, as well as the overall histogram right on the tone curve so you can visualize it. Okay, so let's get to the technical things out of the way. Now, if you stay with it, you won't have a problem, and this will become second nature over time, all right? Because it's really not hard to understand what is going on with it. All right, so all the way here to the right, we have our blacks. Then we go to the right more, and all the way to the left, we are now in our whites. So from left to right, okay, is what this graph is showing. This diagonal line is saying whatever the colors are, the colors are. So if I put my point over this, you'll see that below the graph, you'll see the two things. Input is 0, output is 0. All right. Output and input is what the color value is. So 0 is black, absolute black. All right. So when the picture contains an absolute black value, the output is absolute black. Right. Same thing if I come up to the upper right-hand corner and I look at things, and you'll see that the numbers say 255 in and 255 out. 255 represents absolute white. Okay, so that means what goes in comes out exactly for what it is. So if something in the picture is white, it's 255. And using a tone curve here, we can actually change those rules. All right? And we can do everything from increased contrast to decreased contrast. We can do color grading. We can institute all kinds of creative, wonderful things in the tone curve. And half the people are just too intimidated to go in and actually use it. All right. So let me open this here to make it a little clearer here. This is a breakdown of the basic tone curve. Okay, remember I told you the left-hand side is the shadows, the mid-tones are in the middle, and the highlights are on the right. Okay, that's the simple principle. So remember, when you're working with a photo and you want to adjust the shadows, you're going to be working in this area. If you want to work on mid-tones, okay, you're going to be working in this area. If you're going to be working on the highlights, right, you're going to be working in this area. Okay, that's the basic premise. Now, we're going to take this a little further. And so basically, we're going to add in 2 more points. So we have the bottom left, which is the black point. Then we have the shadows, midtones, highlights, and then the white point. Okay? That's it right there. If you remember this, you are already halfway to being a master of the tone curve. Okay? All right. Now, a little color theory coming up. All right. Now, this may be a little complexing, but there are rules of colors. Okay. I didn't design them. I didn't make them. But you've all heard of, opposite colors, complementary colors, things like that. Those are things that are programmed into the system and that everybody applies these rules. And these are rules that are not changeable. Okay. So you just need to remember them. All right. Now, if I'm on an RGB tone curve, I am lightening and darkening the overall image. All right. But if I change the channel to the red channel, for example, if I go up with the line, I'm adding red into the photo. If I decrease it below the line, I'm adding cyan. All right. So it's an add and subtract relationship. So if I was working on the green channel, if I take the line up, it introduces green, and take it down, it adds in magenta. Same thing with the blue channel. Blue I add, yellow I take away. Okay. Now I know this has probably got you all head spinning and so forth, but I trust you, it's all going to make sense when we get done. So I'm going to move this off to the side. Okay. So now back onto that. So let's just play. Okay. The first thing you do, you're not going to hurt anything by playing. You're not going to destroy the picture. You're not going to be able to, mess it up beyond repair. It's really easy. And just to show you, I'm going to go mess up the photo. So I grab my line because I don't know what I'm doing. And oh my God, look what I did. I've destroyed the picture, right? Don't worry, okay? This is how we learn, okay? Just hit the reset button. And the picture is exactly back the way it was. No harm, no foul. Okay? I want to get that into your head. I want you to play. I want you to experiment. Okay? That's how we learn. That's how we get good at what we do. Okay? Is understanding, seeing with our eyes. So let's test your eyes. Okay? If I go to the red channel, remember, and we learned from the previous slide that if I raise, I'm going to put a point right in the middle. And if I raise this above, it should be adding red to the image. So let's find out if that's what happens. Well, look at that. I'm adding red tinted into the image. Well, what happens if I don't? Maybe if I take away red, and what's going to happen? It's going to introduce cyan. Okay? So, when it starts on the diagonal line, everything is as it was. Adding red, adding cyan. Okay? Using this knowledge, you're going to be able to tone and adjust your images, even color grade your images with great precision. Okay? So, let me undo that, and now go to the green channel. Green channel, if I raise the line up, what's going to happen? I introduce green, right? If I go below, I'm going to introduce magenta. Okay, and I'm doing these exceptions extreme so that you can actually see what's happening on it. Okay, we'll reduce that. Now we bring up the blue. Okay, and now if I raise the line, I'm going to introduce blues into the image. Okay, and if I turn around and take it down, I'm going to be introducing yellow. All right, so not so hard, is it? This is all pretty basic. Now, Chapter 1 has RGB, which means red, green, and blue. We're going to adjust everything in one shot. Okay, Luma, okay, is the luminosity of the image. So you can just work on the luminosity. All right, so it's a nice way to be able to isolate what you want to work on. Do you just want to work on the luminosity of the image? Do you want to work on all 3 channels at once using RGB? Okay, That's your option. Okay. So let's look at this image. All right. We could turn around and say, well, look at it. It's kind of flat. It's kind of matted looking. I want to increase the contrast. Okay. Now, to do that, we need to put some points on the graph. So I'm going to put one up here, and I'm going to put one about here. So I have 2 points on this line now. Okay. And if you make a mistake, don't like anything, just hit the undo button. Okay. Remember, no harm. No harm in what you do. Okay. So I've got my 2 lines, and I'm going to raise this one up ever so slightly, and I'm going to lower this one up. Now, what's happening to the image? Now, I'm going to take this way up so we can really exaggerate. All right. What's happened to the image? We have introduced contrast. Look at the difference. I'm going to go the before. Okay. Very flat. And the after. Okay. We've introduced a tremendous amount of contrast just by doing this curve. Now, by the way, this curve is referred to as an S curve because it's kind of shaped like an S. Okay. And remember this, the standard S curve is always going to increase contrast. So if you look at your image and you say, I want to add some pop and some contrast to it, this is how you do it. You do an S curve. Now, everything on the curve needs to be gradual. All right. Don't be heavy-handed. In other words, we don't want to be extremes, right? I don't want to go like, boom, like that. Because if I'm making really sharp, crazy turns, right, that's not going to give me a good effect. What's going to give me a good effect is doing gradual, smooth curves, right? That's what it's going to give me here, all right? So we've got this little S curve right there. Adds contrast, enriches the colors slightly. So now let's reset the image. And what if I want to take away contrast? Maybe this image has too much contrast. Well, do the reverse of the S curve. So again, we'll put some points in. And I will reverse it. Okay. Now I have a reverse S. And you can see the image is okay. So a better thing here is the before and the after. I took away contrast. Okay, I made it more matted. Okay, so sometimes you're going to look at an image and you want to do a reverse S curve. All right, so there's your 2 most powerful curves in the game, the S curve and the reverse S curve. Okay, so hopefully this is all making sense. It's not so hard, is it? So you just need to take some time to have it explained, and then you play with it and you're going to get a full understanding of it. All right, so let me go ahead and reset everything here. And now I want to turn around and I want to explain why the curve is there. Where do I put these dots? Why do I put these dots? Okay, well, it's based on the image that I'm working on and what I want to accomplish. Okay, maybe I want to lighten her skin, for example. Well, where is her skin on this graph? I don't know. Take the color picker, okay? Click on that, and then just hover your point where you want to say, okay, I want to adjust her skin, and click. And look, it put a point on the graph for me. So if I mess with this, I'm now affecting her skin, all right? Because it plotted it for me. And again, this applies to anything. If I take the green and click that, I got another point. If I take the red, there's another point. So now I have these different points, and it helps me target where I'm working. Okay? It helps me target the individual areas. And there's no rules about how many points you have or how targeted you work with. That's totally up to the image you're working with and what you're trying to achieve. Okay? So that's a handy little tool for you. And it makes it so easy. Now, I want you to also notice here, I'm going to hover on this dot here, and I want you to look at the numbers down here below the histogram's tone curve, okay? And you'll see that the input is 174, but the output is 184. That's because we increased it. We put a curve into it. So, in other words, the standard cover is going to be increased. All right. Now, if I take this one here and I hover, and you'll see that I left that one practically the same, but if I drop it down, you could see that the input was 217, but I'm changing it to 189. Okay, so that's what the tone curve is all about, is affecting the image and changing values, the input to the output of the image. All right, so let me reset the image here. Now, this image is been post-processed already, and it's set up for a matte look. Okay, that was what I was going for in this image. But if I wanted contrast, what do? I do an S-curve. So pop a couple spots on here and do an S. And there we are. Okay, we have increased contrast. There's before and there's the after. Okay, and we did that with just a slight little adjustment on a curve. So now you turn around and say, well, okay, that's wonderful, but what else can you do? Well, I can color tone my image. Okay, so let's say I wanted to go blue channel, right? I don't want to introduce more blue, right? If I do that, that wouldn't look too good. But if I go down, I could be introducing maybe a warmer glow of yellow. Okay? So again, you hold the Alt key here. You see before and the after on how I have warmed it up by introducing yellows. Okay? And again, back to the basic curve. See, they're all independent of each other. My S curve is still there, but I also introduced a color shift, okay? Now, depending on where I put these changes, I could put colors into the shadows by putting it down here. I could put it, so let me reset this here. All right, so this represents the shadows area, right? So I'll take a point there, and this represents the highlight area. And we have something in the middle. All right. If I want to introduce blue into the shadows, okay, anything that's considered a shadow is going to get a blue tint. So how do I do that? Well, I just I raise this, and I'm going to do it extreme, but now I have a blue tint in my shadows. Same thing in my highlight area. If I turn around and do that, I would raise blues into the highlight areas. So you could target between whether you want to have an effect in the midtones, the highlights, or the shadows. You can basically color grade your image all in one place. And there's nothing that you can't do. Okay, I know a lot of people compare levels and color grading. There's nothing you cannot do in the curve, the tone curve, okay, that can be done by any other tool. This is all inclusive. If you become a master of this, you'll be able to be a master of editing. Okay, I believe that spend time with this, understand it, play with it. Okay. you'll walk out a much better person, a much better, higher quality post processor. And again, just remember the basics. All right. And what are the basics? The basics are the left side is the shadows, the middle of the midtones, and the right side is the highlights. All right. If you remember these basics, okay, and then you remember the color complementary opposite colors, all right, you'll be able to color grade and adjust your images, and you'll come up with much superior effects. Okay, and you're doing it with one simple panel in Capture One. It has incredible power. So take the time, master it, understand it, okay, and I think you're going to be better off for it. All right, so appreciate you guys staying with me. If you like this video, please take the time to subscribe and like. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave some comments below, because I love your feedback. And if these videos do help you, I really appreciate a like. It helps the channel. It helps me get more exposure. So, all right, till next week, you guys take care. Bye-bye.